A comet wipes out most of life on Earth, leaving two valley girls, played by Scream Queen Kelly Maroney and Catherine Mary Stewart, fighting against cannibal zombies and a sinister group of scientists. We watched Night of the Comet.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm my number one fan.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
God, it knows I'm here.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
You're listening to the Slasher Sports Show with Billy Graves.
He has made over 30 short films and one feature, including his most recent film, the award-winning documentary House of Oddities, the story of the Atrocity Exhibition. He is the host of the podcast, The Cinema Psycho Show. I'm happy to welcome Brian Cottington. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Billy. Thank you for having me on. I got to say, as a filmmaker, I love that intro.
You like that?
I really do. I really do. It's the first time I've seen it. And you were telling me before the show started that we were going to have an intro. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what kind of intro it is. And man, you really did. You really go all out.
I do my best. And, I can't take all the credit there. Carl Casey from White Bat Audio provides the music, and he's fantastic. I love that cyberpunk situation he's got going on. Yeah. Got together some cool visuals. I said, man, this is going to fit. It's going to fit.
Oh, it definitely does.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you said so. And I'm glad you like it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. You kind of reached out to me. I was like, wow, wants me to be on the show. Awesome. and we obviously, we're in the same sort of mind when it comes to horror and film. So yeah, I'm glad to be here.
We are indeed. Brian, Night of the Comet.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a film that is celebrating an anniversary this week, and man, it's so often overlooked and maybe underrated. I don't know why, but why don't more people know about this film?
You know what? Here's the funny thing. So I've been raised in horror films. Like it's literally my thing. I always say, like, I watched my first horror movie when I was 2 years old. And it was Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. And honestly, this was the first time I'd seen this film. So it was even overlooked by me. And that's a rare thing. But I'm glad that I watched it because it was fun. Like, it's a very fun movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think part of the reason why it gets lost somehow in the shuffle is because this movie came out in 1984. And the 80s were this perfect time where you had independent film studios that were cranking out movies literally every weekend, and I think that with all the other big movies that were coming around this time, it kind of got lost in that shuffle because of how many other films were coming out. Like the 84, we think of Nightmare on Elm Street, the first movie, original Freddy Krueger. That's kind of what 84 takes place. But, you also had like Chopping Mall earlier, and that's, I think, why that this movie in particular gets stuck. Plus, I also think that it's a weird film in that part of it is clearly an homage to like the 1950s, like science fiction exploitation films, and also a little bit of the Night of the Living Dead zombie stuff. So it's not necessarily one you can really categorize like other horror movies of that age.
Yeah, and let's just go ahead and take a look at the trailer while we're doing it. I mean, this thing is, first of all, it's fantastic in that you said it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. There, of course, we have the fantastic Scream Queen. There she is, Kelly Maroney, of course, Catherine Mary Stewart. But this thing was directed by Thom Eberhardt. Okay. And he directed, well, first of all, do you have a favorite Thom Eberhardt film?
Off the top of my head, not really, because he's kind of like
neither. It's probably
he's not
this
a Wes.
one, right?
I'm sorry, he's not a Wes Craven. He's not a John Carpenter. He's not a Clive Barker. So like, yeah, it's kind of
There's
hard
your
to
soft
pull that.
question, right? There's your soft question. I mean, he did, however, direct the greatest film ever about children being made gigantic after having been made miniature. Yeah, I do mean Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. Okay.
Oh, this makes total sense now that he did that.
All the sense in the world. All the sense in the world. But, you know, like, that was a film, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, that, you know, I saw as a you know, pretty young kid. You know, it might have been, you know, one of the coolest premises I saw as a kid. It was just so big a film to kids my age. I specifically remember my elementary school showing it to us, and a class full of slightly taller toddlers crying these Noshan Moreno tears when the ant got killed by a scorpion, if I remember that right. Was that right?
Well, that's the first one. That's right. Honey, I Shrunk the Kid.
And then the second one was just a pile of garbage.
That second one was horrifying if you think about it. Like, your kid blows up, goes into Las Vegas. Just, I mean, the fact no one died, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle in itself.
Yeah,
it really is. And did you get the reference, Noshan Moreno tears? I hope you did.
I didn't.
It's okay. It's okay. Listen, we at Slasher Sports have kind of an intersection where horror meets sports. Okay. You know, we cover college basketball, college football, cover baseball. And of course we're over here talking horror films, and not necessarily, I think there's a Venn diagram where horror fans and sports fanatics intersect. It may just be a sliver, but they're there.
Here's the thing. I live in Pittsburgh, so, you know, Steelers right there. I'll be the first to say I am the least Steeler person at all. Like, in fact,
but
I don't care. But I'm
you're
aware
a Steelery person.
I'm aware of it. I'm aware that basically on Mondays, especially recently, a lot of angry people.
Yeah, they're very
walking around,
angry.
especially like in South Side and you know, the North Side area, and a lot of angry people for some reason on Sundays. I don't know why. I mean,
you don't know why? Well,
no,
I'll tell you.
I
later.
know.
I don't want to offend anybody while we're recording, you know. But speaking of intersections, if we're going to play a little bit of 6 Degrees of Separation here, Brian Cottington and Billy Graves can do one move. And that is the Pittsburgh Pirates, because the Pittsburgh Pirates used to be the major league affiliate of the Nashville Sounds, and I am in Nashville, Tennessee.
No kidding.
So here we be.
There you go.
Know? That's what made this happen.
It wasn't podmatch.com at all. No, it wasn't that at all.
It wasn't at all. It was Lloyd McClendon and all those guys. But, you know, when let me go back to the Noshan Moreno thing. In the Super Bowl some years ago, the Denver Broncos played, I think it was the Carolina Panthers. I could be wrong. But Noshan Moreno was a running back for the Denver Broncos. And during the national anthem, tears are flowing from this man's eyes, and they are the largest teardrops I've ever seen. That's why I just, you know, went out of the way and just said Noshan Moreno tears. They're not crocodile
to have
tears.
like a bottle of glycerin like somewhere in like a sock,
he may
and he
have.
just, you know, he's doing the thing and just put a little bit right here, a little bit right there, you know. Of course,
you know,
like, his video, so like the video people will get it. The audio people will be like, what the hell is Brian doing? I'm moving my hand
down.
Yeah, moving my hand to my eye and just be like, throw glycerin in the eye. So it looks like a bunch of big tears, because he really loves
pickle juice on your sandwich.
Yeah.
But you know, when you slow it down, it looked like slobber coming out of his eyes. They were that huge.
He needs to see a doctor.
God, Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was happy about being in the Super Bowl or if the national anthem moved him that much.
It might have.
But
You never know.
But I will never again say crocodile tears. I will
funny.
forever say no Sean Moreno tears, and then I'll go through that same spiel with everybody else. But when I think about Night of the Comet, yeah, I think about Kelly Maroney and Catherine Mary Stewart. But in terms of visuals and audio, the intro just screams quintessential 80s. Okay?
Oh my God,
the voiceover,
this whole movie. It's literally like concentrated 1980s in a vial. That's literally what
smack
this
dab
movie
in the middle.
It's so much 80s. Everything that everyone likes to think about with the 80s, like the leg warmers and the synth punk and all that. It's all there, But yeah, you're right. Like it opens up with this trailer, the movie trailer voice, basically, the Don LaFontaine voice, if you will. For those who know, and it just basically says, like, this comet's coming and it's wiped out the dinosaurs, but leave it to humanity to be stupid and celebrate the comet. Okay.
And there was somebody holding a sign that said the comet is safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's not a 2022 thing, I don't know what is.
Yeah, no, but you know what a funny thing is like, I'm a firm believer that if that comet really was coming, like in 2022, you'd have the exact same reaction.
Oh, you're right. You are 1,000%.
You'd have parties. You would have, some people say, I don't trust the comet. And then some people say, I trust the comet. And, you have everything under the sun just like it is. Like, I remember when Independence Day came out, and at the time, I'm like, why would people, like, go on top of a building if they knew, like, a giant alien ship had just arrived and have parties? The thing is, we as human beings tend to do those sorts of things.
Yes, we do.
You talk about sports.
We test fate more than anything.
How many times do you see lit couches on fire when a local sports team wins?
I don't know what the symbolism is.
I've seen it. And I don't get it, but it's the same thing. Like, why not? Why would people not celebrate with a comet coming towards them? And it's like, yeah, you know what? The whole sky is gonna go red and shit. Okay, I swear on this podcast, is it cool?
It's not only cool, it is.
I gotta ask because
emphasized.
like my podcast is a explicit podcast, but I know not everyone is. So yeah, people will be
That's
like,
true,
oh, the sky's turning fucking orange and shit, and yeah, that would be a thing where I would run and hide, but I wouldn't necessarily be like, let's have a comet party. But they're doing a comet party, and you've got a movie theater in which they're screening comet movies, which I'm like, what comet movie would you play?
That it came from outer space. I don't know. So. Some kind of alien. Maybe they think aliens are going to travel on the comet. I don't know.
Or maybe it's meta. Maybe they're playing Night of the Comet in the Comet Theater.
That's heavy. That is so heavy. Go. We got to go back.
If Wes Craven was writing this movie, that's what would happen.
Yeah, at least if he did it in the 90s.
In the 90s, yes. Yeah.
In the 90s, yeah. But, that comet's probably going to be flammable. Just think all that Aquanet is going to make the
so much Aquanet, so much nylon, polyester still is a thing. Yeah, a lot of people going to be lit on fire or just turn to brick dust because that's what happened.
Because that's what happened. As mentioned, Catherine Mary Stewart, Kelly Maroney are heroines. They're playing sisters. Let's start with Catherine Mary Stewart.
Yeah.
Though we remember her for Night of the Comet, a very small percentage of her acting roles have come in the horror genre. A lot of times, folks might put her in the conversation with the likes of Barbara Crampton and Kelly Maroney, her co-star, but not so much.
I don't know if I put her in the same level as Barbara.
Now,
Crampton.
Weekend at Bernie's was her most notable role, probably.
She also was in Last Starfighter.
Last Starfighter.
Same year. Yeah. But yeah, Weekend at Bernie's is what I think people know her for most.
That's where I knew her to begin with.
Right.
I had totally forgotten that she was the number 2 in this one. Actually, she's the number 1, I guess, if you look at the billing. But she also just recently starred in a short film, a Friday the 13th short film called Victim No More. It's not one I've seen, but I think it revolved around some of Tommy Jarvis's family.
Okay.
Pretty sure Stewart's role is either a sister or aunt of Tommy. I could be wrong. Thought that was kind of cool. Makes me want to go find it. Makes me want to go find it. And then Kelly Maroney. We're going to remember her from Chopping Mall, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, The Zero Boys, Transylvania Twist. She gets a lot of love from the horror community, as deserved. She has more horror credits than her co-star, but a lot of dramatic roles, like in the 200 and something odd dramatic roles. Do you consider Kelly Maroney a bona fide scream queen?
Yeah. Yes. For
no doubt.
Like I would say that you kind of have different sections of the 80s specifically where you see these scream queens kind of pop up. Like I think Kelly Maroney really is that early 80s, like 1982 and maybe up to about the late to mid 80s. But then you have like Linnea Quigley and Barbara Crampton. They kind of picked up mid 80s and up. That's where you get like movies like Return of the Living Dead and Night of the Demons, which is one of my absolute favorites. Ever do Night of the Demons, I'll come back on because that's literally one of my favorites. But I think like you see these little ages that pop up in the 80s where certain scream queens kind of take, prominence. But yeah, I do consider her a scream queen, especially for Chopping Mall. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Chopping Mall is probably a top 15 film for me in the horror genre. Just because, mall horror, But Brian, as children, or at least this was like my experience in the 80s. I'm 40, born in 82.
I'm 37, so I was born in 85.
Okay, so you would probably remember what you were watching on TV in the late 80s as a child.
Yes.
I was, basically bound to whatever my babysitter was watching at the time. I'm talking about a time before preschool was a common thing.
Now, I did have HBO, and that was a mistake on my parents' part.
Yes, it was. Yes. Shame on them. Shame on them.
But I wouldn't be where I am without it. So, like, that's the thing is I got to say that is. If it wasn't for HBO, I that's where I saw Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 was playing on HBO, and I distinctively remember. It's one of my very first memories that kind of like took hold for me is, Freddy Krueger's glove like coming out from the bed sheets in Part 2, and the bird especially exploding, which makes no sense in the mythos of the series. But no, I blame HBO. It's HBO's fault.
It is, but it's good that you remember your first horror film because I remember mine as well. And I usually ask what was someone's first horror film as they remember watching. And for me, it was also a Part 2, but it was Friday the 13th Part 2.
Okay.
At a VCR. I had to sneak and watch that one. But yeah, very good one. But in 85 to 87, I took in a lot of TV that wasn't really meant for me. Okay. Talking daytime soap operas, Murder, She Wrote, Hollywood Squares, Gunsmoke, Soul Train. Those were all at the top. Okay. But Kelly Maroney, for just a cup of coffee, played in a daytime soap opera that I can only remember one storyline from.
Really?
And it was called One Life to Live. And
is that one still going on at all?
It probably is. I don't think they ever die.
My mother was into All My Children. That was her.
Same channel.
That was her favorite one. Well, they all went back to back. Like literally from 11:30 in the morning till about, I don't know, maybe like 1. Like you had a block of nothing but these ridiculously awful soaps, and they are ridiculously awful.
They were ridiculously awful. But, that storyline, I don't know if Maroney was involved in it because, it was her character. And by that, I mean, like, many actresses played this character. Thinking back on it, it might be the most batshit crazy I've ever seen. The gist that there's a love triangle going on. Girl is disillusioned with her original love. So she runs off to Argentina, pregnant with his baby.
Of course,
but in the arms of another man.
Oh.
Okay, where she's allegedly killed by going down a fucking waterfall, but later found to be alive in the care of an
If
indigenous
you go down a
tribe,
waterfall,
and
you're dead.
you're dead.
You're dead.
Yeah, that indigenous tribe might find you, but they will find you in pieces.
Yes,
okay?
they will.
But she had amnesia.
Of
Okay,
course,
that's
she
all
had
she had.
amnesia.
That's where I learned what amnesia was. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my god!
But
That's
she
like
winds up at
that's
the
like a
altar
bad
with the second
Futurama
guy.
episode,
Or a great one.
or a great one.
Or a great one. But yeah, she
Yeah,
ends up at the
crazy
altar with a
amnesia.
second guy. But like as she's saying the vows, she says the first guy's name instead of, and then everybody just fucking comes unglued. Brian, if you missed daytime TV in the 80s, you missed out on some wild program.
I don't know. Like for me, like my memories of the 80s when it comes to programming, obviously I was much younger than you, not by much, but
Not by much.
No, like cartoons I remember more of, but the shows that I remember that were horror related, I remember watching Tales from the Dark Side and the show Monsters. Remember Monsters?
Yes. Monsters is
Oh
great.
my god, so much good stuff. All before Tales from the Crypt, which I watched Tales from the Crypt because, as I mentioned, HBO kind of formed me.
Of course,
and
of course.
Which, funny enough, I actually got to meet someone who worked on Tales from the Crypt, the VP of production for nearly the entire series when I was up at the Erie Horror Fest in October. Her name was Jackie George. She was amazing to talk to, and basically like spilled a lot of the beans in how they crafted this series that honestly is like made a mark on people like me for generations. So
yeah, we've always been into the strange and unusual, and it probably got kicked off during those sneaky HBO or VHS sessions.
Yep.
And yeah, we're fine, I think, right now.
I'm fine. I have children. I'm good.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, a lot of people have children, Brian.
I'm married, and I got kids. We're good.
Put her on. We're gonna figure this out.
She's
We're
downstairs
gonna
with one of the kids. That's the thing right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Downstairs is in the basement, right?
No. I'm in a 100-year-old house, so I mean, you never know.
That is true. There might be somebody down there. It's
There
all
you
right.
go.
We're gonna go with it. But more often than not, when it comes to movies about the apocalypse, there's a build to the apocalypse event. And usually, the day gets saved by some badass and his hot teammate, but not in this one, Brian. Night of the Comet. Yeah, Night of the Comet is basically immediately after the comet enters the Earth's atmosphere. Can you think of any examples where we got that scenario?
In any movies? I mean, the only one I could think of off the top of my head is the first scene in Armageddon, where like New York gets hit by a meteor, and you see like the taxi cab get blown up, and all sorts of Michael Bay shit happens. So like that's the only one I can think of. What gets me most about this opener is one, you've got Regina, who's like the character is hilarious because she's playing an arcade game, and her boss is literally trying to sell someone who's just trying to get popcorn trying to sell a headband with some 5-cent dingly bob things on it, and going on and on about how amazing this thing is. Oh, this is the greatest headband you ever seen. I'm just like,
For $9.50.
for $9.50. Yeah. That's Dollar Tree prices right there. That's $1, not $1.25. $1.
No, flat out dollar. Flat out dollar.
But he's going on and on. Do you know who that guy actually is? You remember where you've seen him before?
The salesman,
The manager.
Yeah, the manager. I know the actor.
He was also in UHF as Weird Al's uncle. He's kind of a character actor in a lot of the 80s films.
I was gonna say that he's one of those guys that you've seen him in a million things.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't like just grab it out of the air.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's everywhere. It's just like who was I talking about the other day? The guy who owned the toy store in Home Alone 2.
Oh
him in so many
yeah,
things.
yep, same deal.
Old Duncan, it's the
Old
same deal.
Duncan.
I don't know his fucking name. I know him as Duncan,
Yeah,
and that's only because of the store.
Character actor.
Character actor, indeed.
That's the nice name for it. It's not just hey you.
What are you doing in 30 minutes?
But I gotta say, like, the whole opening to that before the comet actually happens is kind of insane because Regina is being told, okay, go upstairs and talk to your boyfriend who's trying to sell a bootleg film for what, $110 instead of $100 because the extra $10 that really sells it. And then on top of that, they're having this conversation about, well, I'll pay you $15 to have sex with me, and Regina goes with it. I'm just like,
she's with it.
$15.
Listen, $15 was 3 hours of work for me at the grocery store in my first job. Okay, and I'd have 75 cents left over because I made $5.75.
Okay,
$5.25. So, like, yeah, $15. Let's get.
I mean, here's the thing: this is still Reagan's America, so I mean, I understand that the dollar goes a little bit further in 1984, but like, come on, you got to have more. I'm not saying you can't make a dollar or something like that, but come on, $15. And the guy sells.
She's worried about.
Well, here's the thing.
She's worried about is getting the high score on the arcade.
Well, here's the thing. Regina could absolutely get more than $15. Clearly, the guy she's talking to thinks that $110 is a good deal. So she could have held out for a lot more. At least $10 more.
Well, you know, Night of the Comet is certainly not the only horror movie of the 80s to kind of ridicule consumer culture or really society in general, right?
No,
I mean, we're
right.
thinking about Dawn of the Dead, Chopping Mall, They Live. Later on, the early 90s, People Under the Stairs.
Yes.
You know, but
horror's always been a medium for cultural critique. You go all the way back, even to literature. I mean, you look at Bram Stoker's Dracula, and there's criticism of Victorian, like, puritanical ideas about sex, and even criticism of foreigners. There's even been people who've said that there's anti-Semitic, traits in that book. So, I mean, it all goes. There's always been a critical element to society in horror films, especially.
No doubt. There's commentary everywhere. And that's why it makes me laugh audibly when in 2022, in the year of Odin 2022, you have people complaining that, listen, I want to keep all the social commentary out of my horror. It's like, dude, you've been watching films and every one of them, it's been hidden, and like maybe not even hidden, maybe it just went over your head. I don't know. You can turn a blind eye to it and take it at face value, but there are reasons that certain elements are in films, whether you missed it or you didn't. But what stands out to me in Night of the Comet is the comedy aspect.
Oh my God. It's great.
Fantastic. And one of my all-time favorite lines and really follow-up scene when Kelly Maroney tells Doris, "You were born with an asshole. You don't need Chuck."
That whole back and forth between Doris and Kelly is hilarious.
And if the line wasn't enough, Brian, Doris slaps the shit out of Samantha. Samantha slaps her back. And then I don't know why it's so unexpected. She grabs her by the shirt and punches her in the face, knocking her down. And the delivery of this punch and the response from Kelly Maroney is just completely hysterical.
Well, first
she
of
sits
all,
there just
like,
pouting.
The whole scenario is ridiculous. One, you could tell that this actress did not want to hit her and was like really trying to like, I don't want to actually hit her. So like she clearly is like revving up, but then when they cut to the actual shot of hitting her, it's like this slow-mo punch that's supposed to then send her flying back towards the TV. And then the best part I love about this, and again, this is just showing you the 80s, is that Everyone around, it's not like they're in a dark corner somewhere doing this. It's literally in the foyer where all these people are coming back and forth for this Comet party, and no one bats an eye at the fact that this stepmother, this grown-ass woman,
Normal shit.
just decked her stepdaughter in the face, drawing blood, and they're just, no big deal.
That may as well have happened today.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, if I saw someone deck any child, my next thing would be 911.
911. And if I don't hear William Shatner answer the phone, then
yeah,
I'm taking matters into my own hands.
But
you know,
yeah,
you talk
like,
about the realism of that
thing.
punch.
Yeah.
You talk about the realism of that punch, right? Well, Eberhardt basically wanted this to be as real to life as possible. So you couldn't fool me with that punch, but he basically used like a group of teenagers to tell him like what they would do in a similar situation. And
that's the wrong thing to do.
That is the absolute wrong thing to do. I'm going to base this film off of everything that you guys tell me, but that really does show that when there's in that montage of scenes in the mall, like what to you, Brian, makes this film different than all the other mall horrors like Dawn of the Dead, Child of the Mall,
I think the biggest thing that this movie has going for it, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, was it doesn't take itself seriously
at all,
and that's I think something that one is hard to do. Like I think trying to combine comedy and horror is absolutely one of the hardest things to do. One, because everyone has something different that they view as funny. What you and I might think are funny are going to be completely different to somebody else, or like what I think is funny might be different to you. You might say that's not really funny. So trying to make a horror movie, you kind of have two different thoughts. You're like, I could either buy into the world and make it as serious as possible. And like, I view that as like 28 weeks later, 28 days later. That's basically this, but serious, Yeah. Or you just say, this whole concept's ridiculous. So why don't we lean into the ridiculous side? And that's why, that's where I think this movie shines, is because you have actors who are in this who totally buy into that and they support it. That's what makes this movie really unique.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because listen, the budget to Night of the Comet was right around $700K.
Yeah, that's nothing. Okay? That's
nothing.
That's pennies.
Yeah, you could find other examples of like lower budgets, but those are outliers.
Yeah.
And if they blew up for some reason, like recently, Terrifier 2 was like made on $250K and then, grossed around 10 million. Fantastic, but it's an outlier. It's not to be expected.
No.
But with a low budget like that comes some restriction. For one, you have a non-script almost where everyone's kind of shooting from the hip.
Yep.
Right. But that also means to me, you need the kind of cast who can improv. Mm-hmm. What say you?
I agree with that. I mean, from researching this movie, what it sounds like they did was, to get these very like vast landscapes of nobody around. They filmed around Christmas time. They filmed like the day. They filmed on Christmas Day when they knew no one was going to be around. So like what you're seeing is what happens when everything closes up. But I speaking to that, I'm of the mind that having limitations is a good thing. Imagine if someone just said, hey, you can make any movie you want. You have an unlimited amount of money. And at that point, you're going to be like, well, why do I have to like problem solve? I can just throw money at it. But this movie had to problem solve because they literally had the limitation of budget. So does that mean you can't shoot everything? Yeah. But it also means that when you do shoot, you have to make those scenes count. And that's what Night of the Comet does really well. Every scene that's in there, even ridiculously goofy ones, like that mall montage, I find that the most ridiculous out of them all. Because I'm like, there's no fucking way that I'd be like, let's go into the mall and play around with all the stuff. No, that doesn't work. But the rest of it, though, you make every scene count because you have to. because you don't have the opportunity to go back and do reshoots.
Yeah, and like when the people are turned into that calcium dust by the comet, the filmmakers opted against expensive effects and instead used like common brick dust to depict this I guess
red calcium bone, basically. Like all their bodies turn into this red dust.
Yeah, just poof. And the street scenes were all actually filmed in downtown LA instead of a soundstage. They got, some isolation, from early morning shoots.
Yep.
So couldn't be me.
You're not going to get up at the crack of dawn, go and film stuff?
No, I'm getting up at the crack of noon, Daddy. The crack of noon. So in between red lights you're shooting, like that is some resourcefulness. Like, okay, it stopped. Red lights, let's shoot. I'm sure you've had your share of guerrilla filming to do.
Yeah.
Shoot first, ask permission later.
You have to.
Yeah, and we're gonna actually have a conversation soon about some of your filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I'll save that question for that day. But Mary Woronov, who played Audrey, dismissed the film as basically just a product of its time, quote unquote, that wouldn't have any lasting quality. But it's become a cult classic, right? I'm not off on saying that.
No, I think for a lot of people,
it's a classic. And I'm glad that you were able to find it. There are people that that have never seen The Warriors, people that have never seen Billy Jack. These are films that flopped miserably in theaters, but became like more that have more longevity than a lot of films that made it to theaters and just kind of did okay. But yeah, this is one of those films that survived the comet blast, I guess, and I'm so glad that it did.
Well, I think it's more or less it survived multiple things that kind of got in the way. I mean, you had the reason that movie and a lot of other films of that age really rose to popularity is because of the video store. It was easy to get a hold of these movies, and the studios were like, well, I got to make my money somehow off these things, so why not sell them to video stores? And there were so many video stores at the time. So like, that's how these things got popular. And what we're seeing now is that movies that were considered like lost, they're not lost because they weren't available. They're lost because they never made the jump to DVD, and then subsequently never made the jump to Blu-ray, never made the jump to streaming. So like, that's the thing, is when you find these gems that you're like, no one's ever heard of this thing before, it's not that no one's ever heard of it. It's just that the industry itself has dictated which ones are worthy of digitizing, which is kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, because who gets to dictate truth or goodness, right? Who is the power that is, who says like, well, no, this was not a good film. Had this one not been available today, it's just not as fun. Yeah. And this is a very fun film. I'm glad you used the word fun, because it's simple. It's very effective, fun movie. And it
is it the most dense movie? Is it going to change your life? I don't know about that.
No,
but I would say if you're looking for a fun movie where it's not boring and you're not going to stare at your phone, because let's be honest here, how many times have you watched a horror movie more recently? Okay. And I have a problem with modern horror for a couple of reasons, but I'm not going to lie. There have been times I've looked at a modern horror movie and like 5 minutes in, I'm like, well, let's go see what's on Facebook or Twitter. And this is one of those movies that just by the characters alone and just by some of the dialogue and the situations they're in, you're going to keep watching it. You're not going to be looking at your phone. It's a good one to go watch, especially with friends.
We know technologically it doesn't hold up, and that's fine.
Oh, hell no.
Right. But does the new generation of viewer get through Night of the Comet?
I think here's the thing. I think if the new generation of viewer is grown up on what I call, member berries for the 1980s. Not gonna. I make no bones about it. I totally stole that from South Park. But you know, we have this now thing where there's a nostalgia boner for the 80s because of Stranger Things and a bunch of other things that have come out that have really glamorized that era. I think that those people that maybe like things like Stranger Things and looking for something else, I think they'll gravitate towards Night of the Comet because it's basically that, but it's from the 80s, and like what you're seeing is the reality of then, you know?
Did you ever play the Friday the 13th video game?
Oh man, I played so many video games back in the day. So I
No,
probably
I'm sorry,
did.
the recent one.
Oh, the
more
recent one? No.
recent one.
No, I don't. I have not.
So there's a song on the soundtrack called "Summer of Heat."
Okay.
Okay, it's a very modern song. I think it dropped in maybe like 2010. Could be wrong about that year.
Okay.
But it is very 80s vibe.
Yeah.
Okay. And like you said, with the the Stranger Things bringing the 80s back, I also think that was one thing that some of the younger players of that video game may have, other than Jason himself, right? Because I mean, that's very much an 80s I guess defined series of film.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 80s was the best time, guys. And if you didn't get to experience it, well, damn the bad luck. But that was Night of the Comet, starring Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney, directed by Thom Eberhardt. Happy anniversary to the cast and crew. Before we hit the gag reel, tell everybody where they can find your work and you on your socials, please.
Well, you can find me primarily on my podcast, The Cinema Psycho Show. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. We're also now on TikTok. I'm trying this TikTok thing because I've been told that that's where people go now.
They do.
Cinema Psycho Show. That's our TikTok handle. All one word. I'm trying to use that. But yeah, we're primarily on there. We're 248 episodes in. I'm sure when we talk again, we'll be going a little bit into that, how that show kind of came about. But that's primarily what I'm working on. I don't really have anything new film-wise currently. Most of what I've been doing has just been the podcast and then also working for a podcast company, but we'll get into that on the next episode, I guess.
Check out the episode bio for links to Brian's work. And thank you, Brian, for coming on to review this classic film with me. I'm so glad
it was fun.
You could be introduced to it. Yeah, it absolutely was. I'm so glad you've been exposed to it. I say exposed. That's a better word.
Exposed, like red brick dust.
Absolutely.
Into a zombie.
It turns you into just a ridiculous zombie at that, but it's certainly a pleasure. So make sure you're checking out our other shows from the Slasher Sports crew via the link tree in the episode bio. But until then, I hope you all may drink the blood of your enemies from the skulls of their children.